Dr. Christopher West here, Theology, the Body Guy. Have you ever felt used by someone? Doesn't feel good, does it? In this video, we're going to look at the fact that the opposite of love is not so much hatred. The opposite of love is using people. Every moral philosopher is looking for an all-encompassing norm of behavior, a norm on which he or she can rest his whole ethical system. For John Paul II, that norm, he says, is the dignity of the person. And so he calls his norm, his all-encompassing principle, the personalistic norm. It has a negative and a positive, a thou shalt not and a thou shalt. The negative side, he says, of the personalistic norm is thou shalt not use. The human person is the kind of being, he says, that has such a dignity that when the human being is used as a means to an end, is used as an instrument for someone else's end, the person feels that, and rightly so, as a violation of his own dignity, of his own personhood. The flip side of thou shalt not use, the positive expression of the dignity of the person, is this. The dignity of the person is such that the only proper response to what a person is to love the person for his or her own sake. I remember when I was first learning this principle, when I first read John Paul II's book, Love and Responsibility. It was written in the late 50s and published in 1960, and I first got my hands on it in 1994, I believe. And reading this very principle for the first time, I remember turning the pages, and it was like a mirror was being held up to my own heart. A mirror that made sense of my own experience of life, and in particular, my own pain. I was in a time in my life where I was reflecting on a lot of hurt that I had been caused and that I had caused others. I had come out of a relationship that lasted 4 years, and man, I was just mixed up and messed up and in a lot of pain. And realizing this personalistic norm, discovering it and letting it shine its light on my own history, opened my eyes to why I was in so much pain. It opened my eyes to why, in the end, the girlfriend I had for 4 years broke up with me. Because I didn't know how really to love her. Because I was enslaved to certain passions I had, and there's a basic principle at work here. When you cannot control your own passions, you will inevitably seek to control others to satisfy your passions. And in seeking to control others to satisfy your passions, you're not loving them, you're using them. This is just the game we're taught to play in our culture today. You use me and I'll use you. And I remember learning this back in 8th grade. 8th grade, when I had my first kind of make-out session with a girl, I remember weeping. And even as I say it, like, I don't like to admit it because it makes me feel like a wuss, as I was called by my friends at the time. But, you know, this stuff goes deep in the heart. But the wound to my heart was I thought I was going to have a relationship with this girl because we had been making out, and that was an intimate exchange. And aren't we going to have a relationship? Doesn't this go somewhere? And the story came back to me when it was clear she didn't want to have a relationship with me, that she only made out with me because she wanted to have a story to tell her friends. I felt used, and the pain of feeling used. I remember kind of looking at it as a 14-year-old kid. And what do I do with this pain? What do I do with this pain? And I remember just making almost a conscious decision to harden my heart and say, fine, I'm going to play that game. If that's the way it goes, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm just going to play this game of using and being used. And if I'm honest with myself, I look back at that situation, I think to myself, maybe the reason she didn't want to have a relationship with me is because she felt used by me. Was I really loving her in that makeout session? Honestly, no. I had passions, I had desires, I had curiosities, and I wanted to use her in order to satisfy that for myself. I ended up building relationships on a mutual agreement of use and calling it love. As John Paul II says, what we often call love, if we take a deeper look at it, amounts to little more than two people using each other. My brothers and sisters, there's another way to see. There's another way to think. There's another way to live. There's another way to love. Love, John Paul II says, is a call to make a sincere gift of ourselves to another. Sexual freedom is not the liberty to indulge my compulsions. True sexual freedom is liberation from the compulsion to indulge so that I can become a true gift to another person. This is the freedom for which Christ has set us free. The freedom to love as he loves us. He knows our wounds. He knows we've been educated by a world that has taught us to use and be used. And if we let him into those pains, into those wounds, to kiss, to heal them, to redeem us, to restore us, we can become the men and women we are created to be. I have so much more to share with you about this freedom for which Christ has set us free. I write extensively about it in my books. I teach extensively about it in the courses I offer through the Theology of the Body Institute. I encourage you to click the link to the bookstore below and to click the link to learn more about these courses, both online and in person. And if you want to become part of a global community of men and women who are learning and living and sharing John Paul II's Theology of the Body, click the link to our patron community where you can learn more about that. I hope you liked this video. If you did so, click the like, share this video with those who need to hear it, and consider subscribing to the channel so you can stay posted on when I have another video. Take care.